The wine glass shattered against marble as I collapsed. Luna Serena's smile, the last thing I saw before darkness swallowed me whole. When I opened my eyes again, golden ones stared back. The Alpha King himself, his hand burning against my chest where a mark I'd hidden for 6 years now blazed like a brand for all the court to see. But let me start at the beginning. Meal Omega. The guard's boot struck the back of my knee, sending me sprawling across the polished floor of the Silvercrest throne room. Laughter rippled through the assembled nobles like poisoned honey. I kept my head down, copper hair falling forward to hide the humiliation burning my cheeks. 3 years I'd scrubbed floors in this castle. 3 years of invisible servitude, and still they found new ways to remind me of my place. The Luna requires your service tonight, Aria. Beta Marcus loomed over me, his voice dripping contempt. Try not to embarrass us in front of the Alpha King. My stomach dropped. The Alpha King. Here. Tonight. I'd spent 6 years avoiding any gathering where he might appear. 6 years keeping my left wrist carefully wrapped. 6 years pretending the silver mark beneath those bandages didn't exist. The royal mate bond. A legend most wolves dismissed as fantasy. Burning permanent evidence into my skin the night I'd turned 18. Evidence that would get me killed if the wrong wolf saw it. Yes, Beta. I forced the words out, still staring at the floor. The great hall blazed with candlelight hours later, packed with every ranking wolf in 5 territories. I moved between tables like a ghost, refilling wine goblets, clearing plates, making myself small and unremarkable. Luna Serena held court at the head table, draped in crimson silk that matched her painted lips. She'd arrived at Silvercrest 6 months ago, claiming sacred bonds with Alpha Cain, bringing credentials and breeding that made her the perfect political match. The pack had celebrated for 3 days. I'd watched from the kitchens and said nothing. Now she laughed at something Alpha Cain murmured, her hand possessive on his arm. Every inch the perfect Luna. Except Lunas didn't poison their rivals. And I knew what she was. More wine, Omega. Her voice cut through the noise, sharp and deliberate. Every head turned toward us. I approached with the crystal decanter, eyes downcast. My left wrist throbbed beneath its wrapping. The mate mark sensing something I couldn't yet name. Then he walked in. The Alpha King. Power rolled off him in waves that made every wolf in the room straighten involuntarily. He was taller than I'd remembered from glimpses across crowded spaces, dark-haired and broad-shouldered, moving with the lethal grace of a born predator. His eyes swept the hall, molten gold, ancient and knowing. Those eyes found me. For one breathless moment, the noise faded. His gaze locked on mine with an intensity that made my wolf surge forward, recognition howling through every cell. The mate mark burned hot enough to make me gasp. Then Luna Serena stepped between us, her smile dazzling. Your Majesty, what an unexpected honor. The connection shattered. I stumbled back, wine sloshing in the decanter. Clumsy fool. Serena's hand shot out, steadying the crystal and pressing something into my palm. A tiny packet, the paper damp with powder. Pour the king's wine. Try not to spill. The command held alpha compulsion. My body moved before my mind could catch up, walking toward the king's designated seat, pouring dark wine into his waiting glass. The powder burned against my skin. Wolfsbane. Enough to weaken even an alpha king, to make him vulnerable to whatever assassination Serena had planned. This was how she'd secured her position, removing threats before they could expose her lies. My hand trembled. I could drop the glass, could refuse, could warn him. I could also die screaming while my pack watched and did nothing, the way they'd done nothing when Serena had me whipped for theft of food I'd never touched, when she'd burned my previous bandages and nearly exposed my mark, when she'd made it crystal clear that one word of dissent would end with my body in the river. The king's gold eyes found mine again as I set down his glass. Up close, I could see the intelligence in them, the weight of centuries of rule, the barely leashed power that made my wolf want to simultaneously submit and surge forward in recognition. What's your name? His voice was deep, commanding without trying. Aria, your Majesty. The words came out steadier than I felt. You're trembling, Aria. Because you're my mate and I'm about to watch you die. Because I'm a coward who values her own life over doing what's right. Because everything I've survived for 6 years is about to come crashing down. Forgive me, your Majesty. I'm not accustomed to such august company. His eyes narrowed slightly, reading something in my expression. Then Luna Serena appeared at his elbow, all gracious smiles and practiced charm. Please, your majesty, don't mind the help. They're not bred for polite company. She lifted a glass, her own, I noticed, not the one I'd poured. A toast to your visit. The king lifted the poisoned wine, and I made a choice that would change everything. The glass flew from my hand before conscious thought could stop me. Wine and wolfsbane spraying across white marble. Luna Serena's shriek split the air as crimson liquid soaked her silk gown. You stupid, worthless. Her hand cracked across my face hard enough to snap my head sideways. Blood bloomed copper in my mouth. Enough. The Alpha King's voice dropped to a lethal quiet that froze every wolf in the hall. He stood slowly, power radiating from him like heat from forge fire. Explain. Now, your majesty, I'm so sorry. Serena's voice dripped honeyed distress. The Omega is simple, clumsy. I'll have her punished appropriately. The Omega just prevented me from drinking poisoned wine. His gold eyes fixed on me with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. Didn't you, Aria? Silence crashed through the hall. I felt every wolf's attention like blades against my skin. My voice cracked. The wine was tainted, your majesty. Ridiculous. Serena laughed, but something flickered behind her eyes. Fear. She's lying to cover her own incompetence. Guards, remove her, test it. The king gestured to the spilled wine. If she's lying, I'll deal with her myself. If she's telling the truth. His smile held no warmth. Then we have a different conversation. Beta Marcus knelt, careful not to touch the liquid. He sniffed once, and his face went gray. Wolfsbane, your majesty. Concentrate it. This dose would have incapacitated even an Alpha King. Chaos erupted. Wolves surged to their feet, shouting accusations. Serena backed toward the doors, her composure cracking. Seize her. The king's command cut through the noise like a blade. Nobody leaves until we have answers. Guards moved to obey, but Serena was faster. She shifted mid-stride, a rust-colored wolf that scattered nobles as she bolted for the terrace. Alpha Cain roared and gave chase, his own transformation fluid and lethal. Then the king was in front of me, his hand closing around my left wrist. You knew. How did you know? The bandage had torn during Serena's strike. Silver light pulsed beneath, impossible to miss. No. He pulled the wrapping free. The mate mark blazed in full glory, a wolf and crown intertwined, edged in silver fire. The mark of the Alpha King's true mate, the sacred bond that appeared once in a generation, proof that couldn't be faked or manufactured. Every wolf in the hall dropped to their knees. Sweet merciful goddess. Beta Marcus's voice shook. She's the true Luna. I'm nobody. The words tumbled out desperate and raw. I'm just an Omega. I didn't ask for this. I never wanted. How long? The king's grip on my wrist was gentle despite the steel in his voice. How long have you carried this mark? 6 years. Shame burned through me. Since I turned 18. I hid it because I knew. I knew what would happen if anyone saw. I'm nothing. I'm no one. I can't be your mate. You just saved my life. His other hand cupped my face, forcing me to meet those impossible gold eyes. You risked everything to warn me, even knowing it would expose your secret. That's not nothing, Aria. She's Omega, someone whispered. The king's mate can't be Omega. The sacred bond chooses who it chooses. The king's voice carried absolute authority. Or are you questioning the will of the moon goddess herself? Silence. Heavy and absolute. Commotion at the terrace doors announced Alpha Cain's return, dragging Serena's wolf form by the scruff. He threw her down hard enough to crack stone, shifting back to human form. She had help. Blood streaked his knuckles. Someone in this castle has been sheltering a false Luna. Is that true? The king addressed Serena directly, ignoring her nakedness and shame. Did you come here claiming false bonds? Planning assassination? She shifted back slowly, hatred blazing in her eyes. I would have been perfect. I have the breeding, the training, everything a Luna needs. But you'd throw it all away for some broken Omega who is my true mate. The king's interruption was absolute. Chosen by the sacred bond itself. Everything you pretended to be, she actually is. You tried to poison me because you knew. Somehow, you knew about her mark. Serena's smile turned vicious. Your precious mate won't survive the week. Do you think the other alphas will accept her? She's worthless. Weak. Every pack in 5 territories will challenge her right to stand beside you. Let them try. The king pulled me closer, his arm around my shoulders, both protective and possessive. Let every wolf who doubts her watch what happens when they threaten what's mine. His power flooded the hall, raw and overwhelming, the full weight of the Alpha King's dominance. Wolves pressed themselves flat against the floor, unable to withstand it. But his power also flooded through me. The mate bond opened like a doorway, his strength pouring into places that had been empty my entire life. My wolf rose up, no longer small and frightened, but fierce. Worthy. The mark on my wrist blazed bright enough to paint shadows across walls. The Omega who saved her king, he said softly, speaking only to me. The true Luna, finally revealed. Are you ready for what comes next? I looked at Serena's hatred, at the assembled wolves' shock, at the life I'd known crumbling around me. Then I looked at the mate whose golden eyes held certainty and promise. Yes, I whispered. I'm ready. The coronation took place 3 days later beneath the full moon, in the ancient stone circle where Alpha Kings had claimed their Lunas for 1,000 years. Every ranking wolf in the kingdom crowded the sacred ground, their faces painted with emotions ranging from awe to barely concealed hostility. I stood at the circle's heart wearing robes of silver and midnight blue, my copper hair braided with moonflowers, the mate mark visible on my wrist for the first time in 6 years. No more hiding, no more shame, only terror that I'd fail everyone who'd placed their faith in the broken Omega, who'd somehow become their Luna. You're shaking. The Alpha King, demon, I was learning to call him in private moments, stood beside me, solid and unshakable. Second thoughts. Thousand thoughts. I tried for levity and failed. They hate me. Look at them. They fear change. There's a difference. His hand found mine, fingers interlacing. Let them watch what you're capable of. The ceremony was older than memory. I knelt before the moonstone while the pack's eldest elder traced sacred symbols across my forehead, speaking words in a language that made my wolf surge forward in recognition. Power built in the air like static before lightning. The sacred bond has chosen, the elder declared, her ancient voice carrying to every wolf present. The moon goddess herself has marked this union. Does any wolf challenge the king's mate? Silence. Then, I challenge. A massive alpha pushed through the crowd, his beta and warriors flanking him. Alpha Garrett of the Iron Paw Pack. That Omega has no right to lead us. Let her prove her worth in combat, or step aside for a true Luna. Murmurs of agreement rippled through certain sections of the crowd. I'd known this was coming. Serena's arrest had exposed a conspiracy of alphas who had planned to use her as a puppet Luna, controlling the throne through manipulation and poison. They wouldn't surrender power easily. Combat. Demon's voice dropped to something dangerous. You want to fight an Omega? How brave. I want to fight the wolf who claims to be Luna. Garrett bared his teeth. Or is she too weak even for that? The insult hung in the air. If I refused, I'd prove every wolf right who said I didn't deserve this. If I accepted, I'd probably die. Garrett was twice my size and had decades of battle experience. I accept. The words left my mouth before fear could stop them. Demon's grip on my hand tightened. Through our bond, I felt his instant refusal, his desire to tear Garrett apart for daring to threaten me. Please. I turned to face my mate, speaking low enough that only he could hear. I have to do this. Not because they demand it, but because I need to know I can. That I'm more than what they made me believe I was. Something shifted in his gold eyes. Understanding, maybe, or recognition of the same fire that had made me throw poison wine rather than stay silent. Not to death, he called out, his voice carrying absolute authority. First blood only. And if Alpha Garrett harms my mate beyond what honor demands, he answers to me. Understood. Garrett nodded, but his smile promised pain. The crowd formed a circle. I shed the ceremonial robes, standing in simple fighting leathers that felt foreign on my frame. Every survival instinct screamed at me to run, to submit, to remember my place. Then Demon's power flooded our bond, not overwhelming my own, but supporting it, reminding me that I was no longer alone. Garrett shifted first, a massive gray wolf with scars mapping his shoulders. He circled me slowly, making his size advantage clear. I shifted. My wolf emerged faster than ever before, sleek and copper-furred, smaller but built for speed. The sacred ground thrummed beneath my paws, ancient power recognizing the mate mark that bound me to the king. Garrett lunged. I twisted aside, letting his momentum carry him past. My teeth found his shoulder, not deep enough to seriously wound, but enough to draw first blood. He roared and spun, catching me across the ribs with one massive paw. Pain exploded through my side. Through the bond, I felt Demon's fury, his barely restrained urge to intervene. But I also felt his faith, his certainty that I could do this. I rolled, came up running. Garrett was stronger, but I was faster. I'd spent years learning to survive, to read the smallest shifts in posture that telegraphed violence, to find advantages where none seemed to exist. He charged again. This time I went low, slipping beneath his guard to rake claws across his exposed belly. Not a killing blow, honor demanded restraint, but enough to make him stumble. His blood painted the sacred ground. First blood. Mine. The crowd erupted. Garrett shifted back to human form, clutching his wounds, shock written across his face. Impossible. You're just an Omega. I'm the Luna. My voice came out steady despite my thundering heart. And I'm done apologizing for it. Demon was beside me in an instant, his hand on my shoulder, pride blazing through our bond bright enough to make me dizzy. Well fought, my Luna. The elder approached, carrying a crown of silver leaves and moonstones. The challenge is met. The sacred bond is proven. All hail Luna Aria, true mate of the Alpha King, chosen by the moon goddess herself. All hail. The cry started with Demon's guards and spread through the crowd like wildfire. Not all the voices joined. Some wolves remained silent, their hostility clear. But enough did. Enough to matter. The crown settled on my head, surprisingly light. Through the mate bond, I felt something click into place. Power that wasn't Demon's alone, but shared between us. Partnership, not possession. They'll keep testing you. Demon murmured as we turned to face our kingdom together. Waiting for you to fail. Then they'll wait a long time. I laced my fingers through his, the mate mark blazing silver between us. I didn't survive 6 years of hiding, 3 years of abuse, and an assassination plot just to fail now. His smile was fierce and proud. My Luna. My king. We walked through the sacred circle hand in hand, while wolves who'd dismissed me as worthless now bowed. Luna Serena awaited trial in the dungeons, her conspiracy unraveling thread by thread. Alpha Garrett limped away with his warriors, humiliated but alive. And I, the Omega they'd forced to kneel, the servant they'd beaten, the wolf they'd left to die, stood beside the Alpha King as his equal. The broken were often the strongest. They just needed someone to see it. Demon had seen me, and in doing so, he'd show me how to see myself. The poison wine had been meant to kill. Instead, it had freed me.